to become involved in, in various parent groups to support African American Black students, and hear about how to strengthen parents' engagement and empowerment in our school district. Again, thank you for being here. And now I would like to introduce the Director of African American Students Achievement, Mr. McGee.
Cool. Thank you, Jayvon. I'm very proud of you. Jayvon was one of my former students at Lavanya Dejan Middle School. He was very active and very involved. His mother, Miss Juanita Towns, was also somebody who was very great and very much helpful to our school. And so that is why we're here. Jayvon did such a great introduction. I don't even know how I'm gonna follow that up. But my name is William McGee. I am the Director of African American Student Achievement in the West Contra Costa Unified School District. And again, I want to welcome you all to our speaker series. This is the first one of our series, and we're excited to really present what's going on tonight. So another young man who is very powerful and has given a lot of life to our district, one of our student board members is Mr. Caden Cotton-Blake, and he's going to speak to you guys about what we're doing tonight. Caden.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGee. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first speaker series. My name is Caden Cotton-Blake, and I am the student board member for the West Contra Costa Unified School District. Now, this is a pivotal time in our country and our school district. WCCUSD has taken a strong stance in support of its Black students, Black families, Black community, and Black employees through the creation of the Office of African American Student Achievement. Now, Black people are a resilient people, and Black students are especially resilient. As a community, Black people come in all shapes, sizes, variations of skin tones, hair length, eye color, and more. We are important and want to be treated as such. We are smart and want to be seen as such. We are hard workers and want to be viewed as such. We want to learn and we want to be taught as such. The time is now. In the past and now more than ever is the time for Black students to be recognized as the beautiful and powerful people we are. Now is the time for the Black community to be recognized and uplifted. Now is the time for Black employees to be celebrated, recognized, and valued. As Jayvon stated, you will learn a lot tonight, and we are thankful that you have decided to join us and look forward to you joining us in the future. And now, Mr. McGee.
Cool, thank you, Caden. That was very powerful and very off the hook and very moving. So as Caden and Jayvon have both stated, now is the time. And this is why we're here, and we appreciate you all being here. This is our first event, and so we may have a few bumps on the road, but we thank you guys for bearing with us. So one of the reasons that we are here is to spotlight parent engagement and empowerment, and we do this, as you'll see on the next slide, with our African American Parent Advisory Councils. So each school site has what we call an APAC, and your school site principals and your school site assistant principals and vice principals are charged with creating those with you all. And so the APACs are something that we do try and have at every school site. And the APACs, again, African American Parent Advisory Council, will feed into the ASAP. And we have somebody that will be talking about the ASAP. Let's see, my speaker's not working. Well, hopefully it's working. So then next we have our one of our partners from community engagement. They'll be talking to us about how Black parents can get involved, not only on the APAC, but also in the school site council. So I would like to say thank you to Mr. Marin Trujillo for being here with us. He's been a very great support to me and the Black community. Mr. Trujillo, you're going to talk to us about SSEs?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marin Trujillo. I am the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator. It's great to be here tonight with everyone and see so many people joining. The great power of virtual meetings, right? We can all come together. I wanted today to talk to you about and highlight or put a spotlight on the power of democracy at play in public education. And one of the ways that we do that is through the School Site Council. I know many of you might have heard of this already, but I wanted to just frame it. One, the School Site Council is a committee where everyone's voice is equal and everyone's vote counts the same, including the principals. So everyone has the same power. The SSC, or the School Site Council, develops and approves a school plan and the site budget. And the School Site Council is only as strong as the voices that participate and join it. So we want all African American families who are here listening today to actively consider joining the School Site Council. The School Site Council is composed of parents, teachers, classified staff, and students, and they meet monthly. So it is a commitment of at least an hour and a half a month. And the elections for the new members begin this coming month of October. So I personally invite all of you to consider running, or if you know someone who is interested in taking on a next leadership role, School Site Council is a great way to do that. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Cool deal. Thanks, Marin. That was very helpful. And so as Mr. Trujillo stated, the School Site Council is something that really is an organization or an entity at your school site that works hand in hand with the principal. So we do ask that you all get involved and really work with your school site and your school site council and your principal, so that way you can be a part of this very important group. So next, I would like to introduce somebody who needs no introduction, somebody who I like to mess with. She is the chair of the African American Site Advisory Team. She has been instrumental in getting a lot of things done in the district pertaining to what's happening for Black students, Black families, and Black employees. I would like to welcome Ms. Lon Harrison, and she's going to talk a little bit about the ASAT.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Delon Harrison, and like you guys heard, there is a lot of room for parents to get engaged. So please make sure that you reach out to your principals and you get an understanding of what it is that your student needs so you can share, because you'll see as you come to these meetings and talk to your principals that you may not be the only parent with that need. There's other Black parents in the community, and we can figure out resources and ways to support our children in the district together. So we have APAC, which is at your site, and we have ASSET, which is the bigger group for the district, and we meet once a month. And we are a parent-led group with community. We have a community of elders. We also work in partnership with BEN, and that's our Black Educator Network. And we try to strategize on a lot of ways to give our kids the best quality education we can in our district. So I want to encourage you to talk to your principals at your site and get signed up and let us know what you want to do, and we'll come out and support you. And we want all Black children, we want all children to thrive in this district, but we want to make sure that Black children are getting equal equity in their education. So that's what we're here for, and I hope to see a lot of you soon. Thank you.
Cool deal. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. That was very good, and we appreciate the work that you've done. As Ms. Alana stated, she's really been taking what we're trying to do for our Black families and Black students to heart. And she's done a lot of work along with the other ASAP members to really have this laser-like focus on Black students and Black student achievement. And now we want to introduce one student who I believe will tell you all about herself and the accomplishment that she made with the NAACP and a program there. And she also wants to invite you all to an event. So Ms. Joi, are you online with us?
Yes, I am. Hello, can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, hello. My name is Joi Gonzales, and I am a senior at Pinole Valley High School. I'm also the achievement he spoke of previously. I won the silver medal in the National 2020 AXO competition. And I'm also a Richmond Youth Council branch member of the NAACP. And I'm here to inform you on a very exciting opportunity, an event that we're having next Saturday, September 26th at 11 a.m. that will be hosted on Facebook Live. So this event will be a live candidates debate forum, including the Contra Costa Education Board and Richmond City Council candidates for the upcoming election. So this will be an awesome way for Richmond residents to become informed on the candidates as well as upcoming ballot propositions. So the questions and information will all be pertaining to information and issues that are important to the Black community in Richmond. So again, it's an awesome opportunity for us to become informed voters and have an idea on policies and the people that will impact our local governments, which is especially important right now, as been mentioned in previous speeches. So again, this event will be held on Saturday, September 26th at 11 a.m. on Facebook Live, and you can find the link as well as some other information on this flyer here. And if you have any questions or you're interested in joining, you can email the email that's on this flyer as well. So I encourage you to attend and to encourage Richmond residents that you know to attend as well. So thank you, and I'll swing it back to Caden.
Cool, cool. And I know you're going to swing it back to Caden. Joi, I just want to say congratulations. What you've done was a very big feat. And then also for our school staff that's on the call with us now, I believe Friday you'll hear information from the NAACP and the AXO program at one of our Friday PDs. So please be prepared for that. And this is a great opportunity to get your high school student involved. So for those of you that know me, you know I like to jump in. So my bad, Joi. You were throwing it back to Caden. Caden, are you on? You ready to take us over?
Yes, I'm here and I am proud to be able to introduce today's speaker in our series, Dr. Pedro Noguera. As a sociologist, Dr. Nogueira's research focuses on the ways in which schools are influenced by social and economic conditions, as well as by demographic trends in local, regional, and global contexts. He is the author, co-author, and editor of 13 books. His most recent books are The Crisis of Connection, Roots, Consequences, and Solutions, with Niobe Way, Carol Gilligan, and Alicia Ali, New York University Press, 2018, and Race, Equity, and Education, 60 Years from Brown, with Jill Pierce and Roe Aram, Springer Press, 2015. Now, he has published over 250 research articles in academic journals, book chapters, in edited volumes, research reports, and editorials in major newspapers. He serves on the boards of numerous national and local organizations, including the Economic Policy Institute, the National Equity Project, and The Nation. Dr. Nogueira appears as a regular commentator on educational issues on several national media outlets, and his editorials on educational issues have appeared in the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Dallas Morning News, and Los Angeles Times. Now, prior to being appointed Dean of the USC Rossier School of Education, Dr. Nogueira served as a distinguished professor of education at the Graduate School of Education and Information Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles. Now, before joining the faculty at UCLA, he served as a tenured professor and holder of endowed chairs at New York University from 2004 to 2015, Harvard University, 2000 to 2003, and the University of California, Berkeley in 1990 to 2000. Dr. Nogueira was recently appointed to serve as a special advisor to the governor of New Mexico on education policy. He also advises the state departments of education in Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. From 2009 to 2012, he served as a trustee for the State University of New York as an appointee of the governor. In 2014, he was elected to the National Academy of Education and Phi Delta Kappa Honor Society. And in 2020, Dr. Nogueira was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Now, Dr. Nogueira has received 7 honorary doctorates from American universities, and he recently received awards from the Center of Advanced Study in the Behavioral Sciences at Stanford University, from the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and from the McSilver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research at NYU for his research and advocacy efforts aimed at fighting poverty. Please join me in virtually welcoming Dr. Nogueira.
Thank you, Caden. Thank you for that warm introduction, and it's good to be with all of you virtually. I'm here in Los Angeles, where the air is still bad. I'm sure it's bad where you are too. I feel a strong connection to the West Contra Costa schools because I know your schools well. I've worked with Richmond High, Kennedy High, El Cerrito High. I knew the district back when it was called Richmond. and have lots of old friends and family in the area, and many of them are still there. So it's good to connect with you tonight and to help you in talking about, thinking about how to address the needs of our Black students. So if I can, I'd like to share my screen. Do I have the ability to do that? Just give me a thumbs up.
We'll check with it right now.
Okay.
Our communications crew will get you taken care of.
Thank you. In the meantime, let me say, I don't know if there are, I know there are parents in the audience. I don't know how many educators are out there, teachers, administrators, board members. I hope that you all are there as well, because it's going to take everyone working together to address these needs, address these issues. The challenges facing Black children in particular in Richmond and in West Contra Costa are not new. Anyone who knows this community knows these issues have been around for a very long time. But here's the thing. Several years ago, I was involved in a study. We were looking at Black student eligibility rates across the state of California. The question we were asking is, why were the rates of the number of students, Black students across the state, who were eligible for admission? And eligible meant they had the GPA, they had taken the courses, and they had the SAT scores. Why were the numbers so low? At the time, it was under 4% across the state. I took on a different strand of research, and that strand was to ask, well, where are the ones who are eligible coming from? And it turned out there was a school in Richmond, Kennedy High School, that was producing a significant number of Black students each year that were eligible for the University of California system. And we said, let's look closely at what's happening in Kennedy. The other one was Washington Prep here in Los Angeles. The sad thing is, I don't think that's the case at Kennedy today, but it once was. And the fact that it once was tells us that we could do it again. So as soon as you give me permission, I will start this presentation. Shouldn't take that long because you knew I was coming.
Yeah, you got it, Dr. Nogueira. You can share that screen now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here I come. All right, here we are. So I'm going to focus on what it takes to educate Black children and improve their lives. Obviously, the two go together. Let me start by just saying the obvious. Black children are more likely than any other group of children in this state and in the country to be suspended or expelled from schools. I'll talk about that more later. That's part of the school to prison pipeline that we hear a lot about. They're also more likely than any other group to perform poorly on state assessments. Last year, when the state released its test scores, Black children were the only group of kids in the state that showed no progress. The question is why? Less likely to graduate from high school, less likely to graduate prepared for college, and more likely to be placed in special education, more likely to be missing from honors, gifted, and advanced placement courses. I want you to reflect on this for a moment. These are the patterns. Now, these are by no means unique to West Contra Costa. These are national patterns I'm describing here. Now, here's what happens. We tend to locate the problem in the children. And we make the assumption that something is wrong with Black children. And what we overlook is this. Black children are more likely than any other group to be in foster care, more likely to be homeless than any other group, more likely to be raised by a single parent, more likely to experience multiple adverse childhood experiences, including food insecurity, that is hunger, more likely to be raised in poverty, and more likely to experience trauma, asthma, or toxic stress. Health matters, the environment matters, whether or not you have a stable home obviously affects your ability to perform in school. Hungry children don't do well in school. And although poverty is not a learning disability, and by that I mean there is absolutely no evidence that because a child is born poor that they can't learn, we know that when poverty is ignored, the needs of our children often mask their ability to perform academically. So part of what we've got to do is to unpack this, right? And we unpack it by recognizing, first of all, that the patterns don't determine the possibilities. Yes, the patterns are real, we can't ignore them, because that reminds us we have a problem we have to deal with. However, we also have to look at where are there Black children who defy the patterns? My guess is you got some right here on the program tonight, young men like Caden, right? Who I would assume is doing well academically. And he's not alone. There are many others. In fact, I'll show you in a little while, there are whole schools that serve Black children well. And one of the things that we have to ask is, why don't we learn from those schools? Why don't those schools guide our actions? I would also say that unless the questions we phrase and we pose are changed so that we don't blame children or parents for the problem, then we're gonna make no progress at all. Changing the question starts by understanding what's happening. I mentioned the school to prison pipeline a moment ago. And this is what the data shows. 1 out of 4 Black preschool children are suspended. Now, this is data from 2014 by the US Department of Civil Rights. They got a lot of attention because it's hard to imagine how a preschooler could do something that would warrant suspension. But what it speaks to is the fact that very punitive approaches to discipline are used in many of our schools to address the behavioral needs of children. And it's not to say that there aren't children who are acting out, but we all know that hungry children will act out. We also know that children who have not eaten or children who do not get enough support at home will act out. That is, if we don't address the cause of behavior problems, the problems do not go away. What we've also seen is the tendency to criminalize young people in schools, to arrest them. This is one of the reasons why the call to defund the police has now hit our schools. Because in so many cases, we're seeing kids arrested for offenses that were never seen as criminal before. When I was a child in school, we had fights. No one got arrested for a fight. Today, a fight, an argument, a misuse of a cell phone could easily result in arrest and often does. And that's where the school to prison pipeline begins. We know that when children are unsupervised because they're at home, suspended while their parents are at work, that those kids are at greater risk to get in more trouble. And so what we've got to recognize that if we're going to break these patterns, we're going to have to make school a welcoming, supportive place for children. What we're trying to avoid is this, what we call the progression of disengagement. Consider this, when most children first start school at age 4 or 5, they're excited to be there. They're happy about going. Not all. Some kids don't like school from the very beginning, but a lot of them, they like it, especially because in kindergarten they get to play, they have their friends, the teachers are kind. But when learning starts, formal learning, learning to read, learning to do math, very often The kids who need more support start to exhibit what we'll call task disengagement. Reading time, they push back, they don't want to read. What happens? Now they're not interested in reading. And as they get older, what happens? Every subject is based on literacy. Math, history, science. If you don't have the ability to read and write, you can't do any of those subjects. So now you become totally disengaged in school. These are the young people who become structurally disenfranchised. That is, young people who are neither working nor in school, who are unemployed or in prison. There are millions of people like this across America today. We could have stopped it by early intervention. It's a lot easier to teach a child to read when they're 4 or 5 or 6 than it is when they're 16. Not to say we want to write any child off, but it is wiser and more cost-effective to intervene early. We're not very good at that. So the question that we want to pose is, how do we create conditions in schools that counter the adversity in the lives of some children, that provide support and expand access to educational opportunities for Black children particularly? I want to focus in on the conditions. Okay? I'm a gardener. I don't know how many of you out there are gardeners. Gardeners know you get the conditions right, your garden will flourish. Right now, I've got peppers, I've got tomatoes, I got green beans, I got eggplant, I got zucchini. I tried to grow cantaloupe at the beginning of the summer. My cantaloupe didn't grow. I thought maybe something wrong with the soil or the seeds I used, till I saw my neighbor's garden. His cantaloupes were fine. I'd come back to my house and start blaming the cantaloupe. I realized I had done something wrong. What I found out is cantaloupes require more water, more sun than I was providing. Why? The analogy is this: when we blame children for why they're not performing, or their parents, it's as wise as blaming the cantaloupes. Because what we should be doing is focusing instead on the conditions in our schools, and asking, have we created the right conditions for teaching and learning? We haven't focused on those conditions. In the name of reform, we have tried out new reading programs, we have brought in technology, we have thought we could use standardized testing as a way to gauge what kids are learning. None of this has worked. None of it has worked. And although we now have a government in Sacramento that's willing to try new things, I don't think they're clear about what new direction to go into. We've had top-down accountability. By that I mean what we'll do is we'll pressure schools, we'll threaten schools, we'll take over schools. Inglewood was taken over, Compton was taken over. They're talking about taking over Vallejo. They were talking about taking over your district. Show me one district that got better because they were taken over by the state. They don't exist, because the state doesn't know what to do to help these districts. The state doesn't know how to create the conditions that would allow the children to flourish. And so instead of our reforms leading to improvement, what they've led to is just a cycle of failure. Wasted money, driving out educators who are tired of being beaten down. We don't focus on the culture of schools. That's part of those conditions. We don't address the social needs of children. And we don't learn from success. So I want to show you what it's like when we begin to address the essential conditions for teaching and learning. First of all, safety and order. No one can learn in an unsafe environment. If you feel threatened, if you're on guard, that's stressful. What we don't realize is that safety is not a byproduct of security, it's a byproduct of relationships. When students feel as though they're known, when they feel as though they're taught by adults who care about them, they do better academically. And I'll provide some examples of that. when there's a strong sense of community in a school, where teachers are working together, where families are supporting the school, that's one of the essential conditions. Because families always have to support their children, which means there's got to be respect and trust between the school and the families that are served. When there's positive relationships, a clarity of purpose and shared mission, when there's clarity about what effective teaching looks like. I can't tell you how often I go to a school and I will find highly effective teachers, sometimes right next door to teachers who are struggling. And there's no learning among the teachers. And if you ever wonder, where are those highly effective teachers? Here's what you have to do. Go ask the kids. Ask the kids right now, who are the teachers that you really learn from? Who are the teachers that get you overcome your fear of a subject? And they'll tell you. They'll tell you which teachers challenge them, which teachers care about them. They'll also tell you which teachers don't. And that's why it takes courage to speak to our children about what's happening in school. But we have to, because our kids will know what's going on, and they know when their needs are not being met. We want to create schools where there's student buy-in and engagement, because we can't do it without the kids. So how do you get all these things? How do you get these conditions? Well, here's an example of a school in the Bronx, New York that did exactly that. Eagle Academy. Eagle Academy now there are 5 Eagle Academy, or 6 Eagle Academy schools. The first one was in the Bronx. They're in Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Manhattan, and now in Newark as well. David Banks is the founder of the schools. David was an attorney before he became the principal. He was tired of showing up in court and seeing so many young men being arraigned and sent to prison. He decided he was tired of working as a lawyer, so he went to found a school. He said, I want to create a school where the culture of the school is more powerful than the streets. Now, the first time I ran into the young men who were at Eagle was on the subway. If you ever take the subway in New York, you know that the most difficult time to take the subway is when school lets out, about 3:30. And that's because the kids are going to be on the subway, it's going to be loud, it's going to be crowded. And there I was in a loud, crowded subway car headed uptown. But I see 3 young men in ties. I see one of them offer his seat up to a pregnant woman. So I was surprised and curious by the kindness. I assumed they must be Mormons, because we have a lot of Mormons in the area. They said, no, we're not Mormons, we're from Eagle Academy. I said, Eagle Academy? They said, yeah, it's a school in the Bronx, a school for boys, for young men in the Bronx, a public school. I said, where are you all coming from? They said, we're coming from the Museum of Natural History. I said, where's your teacher? He said, we know how to get home ourselves. We do it every day. I said, well, who taught you to give up your seat like that? They all smiled. They said, that's the Eagle way. I said, that's the Eagle way. I want you to think about that for a moment. John Kohlberg, a psychologist, wrote many years ago, the goal of discipline in school is not to punish kids so that they're afraid of being punished. It is to teach them to do what's right even when adults aren't looking. That's what I was seeing right there. So I said, I got to find out about the Eagle Way. So I arranged a visit. Dave gives me a tour. First thing I see is that every young man at the school is involved in some kind of extracurricular activity. And they have dozens to choose from fencing, to martial arts, to dance, to debate, to the newspaper, African drumming. Why? Because all the research shows when kids are involved in music, in sports, in theater, they do better academically. Why? Because it builds connection to the school. It also develops discipline, teamwork. They're doing that through activities like these. Visit classrooms. What do I see? Young men out of their seats. In this class, they were taking a break, stretching. Why? The teacher said, we have frequent breaks because we work hard, we play hard too. I have to give those young men a chance to get the energy out so that we can get back to work. Their goal is not to crush the energy. It's to channel the energy constructively. It's to make learning fun so the kids want to be there. Every young man at the school learns to play violin, starting in the 6th grade. I went in and I asked, why violin? They said, well, look at them. And I saw these young men holding their violins. You could see their posture, you could see the breathing, but they all didn't play that well. Some of them hard to hear, noise in the room. He said, what we have found is young men who learn to play violin have better concentration skills. They're better able to focus. They're calmer. And then the teacher said, it's a great way to break the stereotypes. I said, what do you mean? He said, when these people in the neighborhood, and this is in Bedford-Stuyvesant or this is in the South Bronx, see these young men with their violin cases walking through town and their ties, they say these boys are scholars. They're redefining the image of what it means to be a young Black man in the Bronx. They also employ what I call a preventative approach to discipline rather than a reactive approach. The reactive approach is what we're all familiar with. It relies heavily on exclusion. You commit an offense, we send you to the office. You do it again, we'll send you home, suspended. Engage your parents after, call the parents up, you need to come in for a meeting, for a conference. Right? It means the parent has to take off time from work to come in because we're doing it reactively, not proactively. We focus on the behavior infraction, but not the underlying cause of the behavior problem. And then finally, because we don't address early symptoms, we often see bigger problems down the line. Now that all sounds familiar because that's the way many schools address discipline. At Eagle, they had a preventive approach. Preventive approach is about values, respect, kindness, empathy, dignity, pride. Those are the values that they're taught. Those are the values that are inculcated. Well, I went to the induction ceremony that starts at the beginning of the school year, where the 12th graders welcome the 9th graders into the high school. Teach them about what's offered at the school, what clubs are available. Teach them how to wear a tie, how to wear the school uniform, how to wear a belt. At the end of the ceremony, the induction ceremony I went to, they brought in 9 members of the Tuskegee Airmen, came in, some of them with walkers, men in their 80s and even their 90s, came up on stage, standing ovation. Why? Because the kids were seeing that they're part of a legacy of greatness. And because of that, greatness is expected of them. That preventative approach focuses on developing character. That's what I saw on the subway, character. It's about addressing the underlying causes of behavior problems. If there's a fight, why are they fighting? How do we prevent fights from occurring again? Interventions and punishments, because kids do get consequences when they misbehave. Let's be clear. Kids must have consequences so they understand right from wrong. But the consequences have to reinforce the core values and have to keep kids connected to learning. The punishment for not doing your work should be more work, not less work. Why would we think that going home to watch TV and play video games will be an effective form of discipline? It's not. And then most importantly, parents and community are involved as partners. One Saturday a month, they have workshops for parents. And the gym is always packed because the theme of the workshop is on what parents care about. I went to one workshop, it was how do I discipline my teenagers without hitting them? Big turnout that day. Went to another one, how do I talk to my sons about sex? Lots of parents came out. They meet the parents where they are. They're responsive to the needs of the community they serve. And because of that, in a city where graduation rates for boys of color, particularly Black boys, are under 50%, at these schools, they're over 80%. Here's another school. This is PS 28. New York City, we have very fancy names. Public school number 28 in Bedford-Stuyvesant. This woman in the picture, Sadie Silva, was featured in an article in the New York Daily News because their school had the highest gains in literacy and math in all of New York City. I grew up in Brownsville, not far from Bed-Stuy. So when I heard about this, I asked if I could visit. She said, come on over. So I go to visit the school. I'm introduced to her secretary. She said, I want you to meet the person who does all of the administrative work at the school. She orders supplies. She fills out reports. I said, then if she's doing the administrative work, what do you do? She said, I'm the lead teacher. She said, I didn't become a principal to escape the classroom. I said, come on, let's go visit some classrooms. So we go into classrooms, and the first thing I noticed is in every classroom we visit, there are 4, and in one case, 5 adults. I said, how do you get all these teachers? She said, well, they're not all teachers. We have a high special ed population, so our special ed teachers are in the class working with the regular teacher, and the kids don't know who's who. Because over 20% of her students had IEPs. She said, the other adults you see are parents that we train to be volunteers. She said, we have over 30 volunteer parents a day. I said, 30 parents a day? She said, yep. I said, how do you get the parents? She said, I just ask them. And we train them before they come. And I see one parent standing very close to a little boy. I said, what's that parent doing? She said, she's there to keep him calm because that boy has trouble sitting still. And another parent's taking a boy, escorting him to the bathroom. The school works through a series of partnerships. They have a partnership with a local hospital that provides health services, including eye exams, teeth exams on site. They have a partnership with the YMCA. They provide after-school activities on site. The school stays open every night till 6 o'clock. Why? Because 30% of the students are homeless. And the principal does not want her kids out on the streets in the cold at night. And so they get swimming lessons on Thursdays. They get chess. They do robotics. It is an enriched learning environment. So let me show you the special training going on for my teachers today. I go into a room, there are 8 teachers and 2 social workers. And the workshop is how to respond to the social and the emotional needs of children. And teachers are posing questions. What do I do with children who are aggressive, who like to fight? Another one says, how do I deal with kids who are restless? They can't sit still. Then finally, one teacher says, I've got a student who he has attachment issues. She said, what's wrong? She said, he's attached to my leg and I can't teach. And in every case, the social workers give practical suggestions. This is how you respond. We'll come and observe. Let us know how it goes. I asked the principal, why are you offering this as a form of professional development for your teachers? He said, because my teachers have to be more skilled to work at this school, because my kids have greater needs. And if I didn't do this, they'd be referring too many kids to special education. Because of her focus on instruction, and I should also tell you this, when I went to her office, I saw a large table with small chairs. I said, what's this for? She said, I told you I was the lead teacher. I spend the day working with kids that the teachers have trouble with. I, again, want them to know I'm there to support them. And every student has a portfolio with samples of their work, so they know exactly how well those children are doing. Every child has a learning plan. They have parental support. They have community partnerships. They're building the capacity of the teachers in an ongoing way, and they're providing individualized support to students. It makes a difference. Again, it's rooted in a recognition that parents have to be the partners. You can't do it without the parents. And all parents want the best for their children. So if the school wants the best and the parents want the best, we have a partnership. We can work together. But working together must be rooted in respect, with a clear understanding of what the teacher must do, parents must do, because all parents can support their children. They can get them to bed on time. They can get them to school on time. They can make sure they're eating, they can make sure there's a place for them to get the work done. This is especially important now during the pandemic, because without our parents, many kids will not log in to remote instruction. So there's got to be a relationship. There's got to be a partnership. Schools can also provide advice to parents on how to help their kids be successful, because many parents don't know themselves. The research is very clear. When there's reinforcement at home for what's happening in school, kids will do better. That's what we want. So we want to make sure there's plenty of opportunities for teachers and parents to get to know each other, to work together. We should address discipline problems early, as soon as we see a sign of a problem, so it doesn't get worse. In many schools, the staff will need to be trained on how to work with parents, because if the staff is from a different background, they may not be comfortable in one-on-one meetings with parents, may not know how to speak to them. We need to make sure that when we have parent-teacher conferences, we're providing useful, meaningful information to parents on how well their kids are doing and what the school can do to support them. And then there are activities when we get back into school, like family literacy and family math, that we can do, and sporting events to build community. And that's important, because when parents are involved, kids do better. We're also seeing schools that are not afraid of tapping into the energy that kids bring. How many of you know teenagers that like to argue? I think we all do. I have 5 kids, they all like to argue. Well, how about if we train those kids to be debaters? You know what debate requires? Critical thinking, because you have to know what information to include. What's real news, what's fake news, what's the source? It requires the ability to communicate persuasively, to make persuasive arguments, and to listen so you can rebut the counter argument. It requires the need to collaborate, because they work in teams. And it requires creativity, so that you can bring that element of surprise in. What an effective way to teach our kids about democracy, by introducing them early to debate. And there are schools that are doing that. This is an example of a school in the Bronx where debate, and they're the debate champs of the Bronx, is a central part of the curriculum. So this in Baltimore when I was visiting. Most of the news coming out of Baltimore is how bad things are. Well, I was visiting a first grade classroom, and the teacher brings in a hermit crab. It's got all the kids' attention. They want to see that crab. She said, "What are your questions about the crab?" Well, the kids have lots of questions. They want to know, where are the eyes? They want to know, is it a boy or a girl? What does it eat? Where does it live? Lots of questions. She's answering the questions. And then she puts them to work. She said, "I want you to write a story about that crab. I want you to draw a picture of that crab." And for the next hour, these kids were totally engaged. Some kids getting up to look at the crab again, others writing elaborate stories. I turned to the teacher and asked her why she brought in the crab. She said, "Well, look at the effect. Look at how engaged these kids are." They were engaged because she tapped into the natural curiosity that kids have. Here's what the research shows. Kids are naturally curious, and when we cultivate curiosity, kids will become independently motivated learners. That's what we're after. Not kids who have to be told what to do, but kids who seek to learn because they've been learning on their own. And there are schools that are doing that right now. There are also schools that are deliberately breaking stereotypes. I mentioned the school for boys. Here's a school for girls in Philadelphia, where they're bringing computer science into the school because they know that's where good paying jobs are. And they know that when they get girls involved in computer science early, not only do they start to see how what they're learning in math can be applied, but they also start to see how what they're learning in school can be applied in their careers. And it's opening doors to opportunities because it's also supplemented by internships. So I could go on because there are lots and lots of examples like these. Over and over again, what they tell us is that when we cultivate agency in our kids, As opposed to grit, our kids can thrive. Our kids can over obstacles. Unlike grit, which is based on hard work and persistence, agency starts with critical thinking. Critical thinking is so important because our kids need to understand why things are the way they are. They recognize the obstacles. They recognize the injustice. And if we don't acknowledge that with them, then they think we don't see what they see. But critical thinking is not just about what I do as an individual, it's also about what we do collectively to address obstacles in our lives, in our communities, in this country. Agency is what makes movements possible, like the movement for racial justice that we're seeing sweeping across the country now. Agency is what makes it possible for young people who come from difficult circumstances to rise beyond them, to experience greatness. So I wanted you to think about what we're doing to create those conditions in our schools and to cultivate those attributes in our young people. These 5 attributes are what the research shows schools should be focused on if we want to serve all kids. I see William has come back on, so I think he's trying to give me the sign. So I will stop there and take some questions. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Dr. Nogueira, that wasn't the sign. I don't know what I'm doing with Zoom. I just pushed the button, but my bad. If you got some more, please keep going.
No, it's okay. I can come back to this if there are questions. I think I did talk long enough.
Okay, cool, Dr. Nogueira. And so you guys, I see that chat is off the hook. And I met Dr. Nogueira. He doesn't remember me. He meets millions of people, but this was in another position I had, and I heard him speak, and it was off the hook. And I was like a youngster back then, and I said, you know, this is who I am. And I was very interested. I studied him in my master's program. And so him speaking to us is something that I feel is a treat. And some people have been blowing up my phone too. So Caden, are you able to come off of mute? I don't know if you could see the Q&A. And like I said, I thank you guys for your patience. For those of you that are in the Facebook world, we had a issue happen with some security, but our communications team was on top of it and they got us back up to streaming. So we apologize. But Caden,
one more thing. This last slide is a books specifically for Black boys that you can get from the American Reading Company. I strongly encourage parents out there, order those books, get the principals who are there, order those books. Kids need to read. All right.
You got it, Dr. Nogueira. And I know the ASAT, they're going to be interested in us ordering those books. So you done set them ablaze right now. So Caden, let me double check because I like our students to take care and run the show for us. Let me see if I can see anything. Bobby, is Caden still on? Is he able to come off of mute?
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Okay, Caden, do you see that question in the chat? Are you able to read, or the question and answer? Are you able to read that for Dr. Nogueira so we can get some more of his wisdom?
Yes, definitely. And also for everyone, I see a lot of questions and comments in the chat. If you type it in the Q&A, we can go through it right now. And whether it's directed for Dr. Nogueira or Mr. McGee to get it out here right now. So just go ahead and do that if you have any immediate questions. But we'll go ahead and get started here with the first question for you. This is from Vernette Crockett. How do we create this environment when we cannot get the support of the teachers and some principals?
Well, this is why it's, if it's so important for parents to be involved, and this work that you're doing tonight has to be sustained, because you've got to let the board know parents have a right and a responsibility to be involved, and principals who don't see that, they need to be replaced, because all the research shows you can't do it without the parents. Now we have to be clear about the division of labor. Parents, the most important form of parental involvement is what parents do at home to support their kids. But parents also have a role in making sure that the school is doing its job for the kids, right? And because you think about this, when you go to a school in the suburbs and you ask the educators there, who are you accountable to? You know what they'll tell you? We're accountable to the parents we serve. You know why they say that? Because the parents they serve let them know. If they're not happy about what's going on, something's going to happen. Some heads will roll. Now, again, it's not about threats. It is about a partnership. But we need schools to recognize that when parents are involved, outcomes for kids improve.
All right, thank you. Then we'll get into the next question here. Dr. Nogueira, what do you think are the obstacles to replicating programs like these on a large scale? We know these things work. Why are they not more widespread?
You know, well, sometimes, you know, I meet educators, including Black educators, who have never been to schools like the ones I've described. So we can't assume they do know. You know, just like me, I in my garden, I'm thinking something's wrong with my cantaloupe. Till I go to my neighbor's garden and I say, oh, no, it's not the cantaloupe, it's me, right? So you have to actually see it to know it's possible. I'll give you an example. I had a principal come to see me. She told me, she said, I need help. She was a brand new principal. I said, what's wrong? She said, my kids are having food fights. I said, food fights? She said, it's a middle school. They're throwing food at each other every day at lunch. I don't know what to do. I have a teacher at every table. They're still throwing food. She said, can you help me? I said, well, why are you coming to me? She said, because I'm afraid to go to the superintendent because I'm new. And I'm afraid that they will fire me if they say I can't stop food fights at my school. I said, well, that's probably true. She said, can you help me? I said, yeah, I can help you. So what do? I take her to a middle school in her neighborhood where the kids never have food fights. And then we eat lunch there together. And she sees not only don't they throw food, but the kids eat family style. One kid goes and gets the entree, another kid gets the salad, they pass it around, they eat together, they clean up after themselves. You see staff members at the table eating with kids, it's a pleasant experience. What's the difference between her school and the school we visited? The culture of the school. Kids learn early on how to eat with each other, how to talk to each other, how to respect themselves and each other. That's part of what they learn at school. So you have to see these models in order to know that they can be implemented.
Cool, thank you for that. Jayvon, did you want to get on and ask the question for Miss Goldie? Do you see that question, Jayvon? You cool with that? You got it, Jayvon?
I don't see it.
It's
Okay.
under Audra Goldie Williams. It's down in the middle if you scroll down a little bit.
Oh, right here.
You see that, buddy?
Yes. What are the top 3 tips, things that have worked to support parents involved in, I can't see it.
Sustain.
Oh, sustain.
Sustain.
The top 3 things that you can do to sustain parent involvement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here they are. You got to have childcare, right? When you want parents to come out to the school, you know, parents who have smaller kids, if they don't have a place for to watch their smaller kids, they're not going to be able to come. Food always helps, but getting the kids to perform, bring the kids into that conference, so that when they're talking with the teacher, the child is there, right? And that way, you know, it's not just a discussion between the teacher and the parent. The child is there. So if the teacher said, well, the child didn't do their work, now the child is there to be held accountable. Why didn't you do the work? Was that you didn't understand it? But you don't want the parents and teachers to be arguing because the kids are telling the parents one thing, teacher another thing. So, you know, bring the child into the process, and then make the experience a positive one. It should not be a painful one to get parents involved at school. When we do things, you know, I work with a school, again in New York, where they would do basketball games, parents against the teachers. Everybody's in the gym. They want to see parents and teachers play basketball. It's a celebration of the school, right? That's what we want to do. Celebrate the community.
Dr. Nogueira, will you talk to us? You were talking about the conditions of schools and the conditions of learning. our district is taking a big step in talking about dismantling white supremacy and racism in education. Will you talk to us about what we need to do as educators so we can support especially Black students and also support our Black community? Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that, I'm glad to hear that the district has that kind of commitment. Now we got to make sure that the rhetoric around ending white supremacy shows up in the way they are preparing teachers, in the curriculum. What are the kids reading, right? And what are they learning? And in, again, the emphasis around school culture, building that culture. Because I get worried right now. We're at a moment of heightened awareness around racial justice, and that's a good thing. But what we know is that these moments can quickly pass, right? And a few months from now, we're on to something else. So it has to get down to the work of school leaders. And that last slide I had showed the 5 ingredients that have to be in place for schools to be successful. You have to have teachers working together, building their capacity. You have to have good leadership. You have to have a strong culture. You have to have parents involved. When you get all those ingredients together, those are the conditions that lead to sustained improvement. And that's what the district, so, it's good to say we're against white supremacy. How's that going to show up when school opens? What is that going to look like?
Great, thank you for that. Caden, are you able to ask that question for Ms. Hearn? Do you see it at 719 there? Do you see it there?
For Stephanie Hearn?
Yeah.
719. Oh, so she would like to know if we can get a copy of the slide deck.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
And then what about the question at 720 there, Caden? Do you see that one from Leah?
Yes. How do we guide our children to get into colleges such as Ivy League schools?
So the key there is it can't start in 12th grade. 12th grade is too late. You got to start elementary all the way through, reinforcing the good habits, right? Kids who develop good study habits, kids who develop a sense of pride in their work. We talk a lot about the achievement gap. A big part of the gap in achievement is a gap between a student's actual ability and their performance. We have a lot of kids who are just doing the bare minimum. They're satisfied with passing, and they're not aiming for the best, right? That's why I always tell teachers, you want kids to do better work, you have to tell them, revise that paper, it's not good enough. That's a C. I want you to see an A. And then you have to give them feedback on what to do to get the A. But that attitude has to be embraced by the student. So that early on, if you're doing that in elementary school, all the way through middle and high school, that means you're going to be taking those challenging courses, and it means you're going to be striving for your best because you have in yourself a commitment to excellence. And that's what really allows kids to excel at the next level. But if if you don't get that from home, then you've got to get that reinforcement at school.
Thank you, Dr. Nogueira. And then do we have you for about another 7 minutes or how much longer?
Yeah, 7 minutes is good.
Okay, perfect. Joi, are you able to come off of mute, Joi? Did you want to ask that question for us?
Mm-hmm. So Rachel Bolden Kramer asks, my first grade Black child is in the Spanish language immersion program at Stewart Elementary. I'm disappointed by how few Black children are in the program, which produces completely bilingual young people. What do you think about the lack of Black participation in a program like this? I learned Spanish in college, and the white students at my college had already been exposed to so many language opportunities. That is why I enrolled my child, but I do get frustrated by the lack of Afro-Latino culture here.
That's a great question, because what the research shows, when children are small, that's the best time to teach another language, because children are like sponges, right? And it's much easier for them to acquire a second or even a third language when they're little. If you wait till they're 12, 13, or high school, now, I mean, think about how many people are adults trying to learn another language and how hard it is for them, right? Because, brains are not as quick as while we're small. So I agree with that parent that the value, because if you can speak more than one language, you have more opportunities. Right? There's also a lot of evidence showing your brain is working more, right? Because you're using your brain in different ways. You know, and people have to realize, once you leave the country, then you realize, guess what? You know, I was in South Africa, average person speaks 7, 8 languages, right? You know, I was in Curacao, the average person speaks 4 languages. You know, so we can do this, right? It's not like we can't do this, but we need to be in an environment where the language is being developed, where we're being exposed to the culture as well, so that we appreciate the value of it.
Cool.
Will,
Cool.
can I say something? Will, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to tell you, thank you so much. You are so right. And what you are saying, I did with my 8 children. I had my first one at 14, and there's 6 that are grown, and they're all college scholars because of what you said. So the one I had at 14 as a college, you know what I'm saying, all of them. And it's just, you are so right. And I'm so glad that I'm a parent leader and that I can share my story. And what you said to all these people listening, you just proved me right, because I didn't have all the words, but you laid it out, why it happened and how it happened, because I was just remembering my life while you were talking. Like, yeah, that's why. And thank you for letting people know and putting it all together.
Thank you. And it's very important for people like you to share your experience as a parent with other parents. Because, you know, a lot of parents, especially, you have 8 children and you sent 6 of them to college already. That's impressive. You have some secret sauce, so you need to share that with other parents.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sharing it. I've been a foster mother, so I've done it with other people's children outside of my 8, and I got a method now. So I'm taking my show on the road.
That's excellent. And, you know, I'll tell you, the same thing is true of my family. Neither of my parents graduated from high school. They sent all 6 of us to college. Right? It's about instilling in your children the importance of education.
Cool, cool. Caden?
Yes, so I believe we skipped a few questions here.
I think you were going to tell the audience we have 2 more questions that we'll ask Dr. Nogueira, and we know we're excited, right? So we got 2 more. Is Jayvon going to ask that one question?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I gotta find it.
You got to find it? Okay.
No, it's right here.
Okay.
We got it. Right here. It's coming in so quick. Sorry, you all. I don't know if Caden want to read his first, and then we'll come back to us.
Okay. Caden, the question that Rachel Miss Forrest posted from Facebook, do you see that in the chat? It's at 7:28 p.m. It's in the chat, not the Q&A, and I could read it if you want.
Yes, please. Oh, it's spotted in the chat?
Yeah, it says,
Oh,
what
okay,
can parents do to advocate for teachers to engage African-American students in a culturally relevant way?
So, you know, the truth is, some teachers may not know how to do that. So work with them, right? A lot of times, you know, they don't understand. I'll give you an example. One of my former students, he was teaching in Oakland, Ernest Morrell, and he had to teach English literature, right? And the kids were just not into it. You know, they were reading the Canterbury Tales. They're like, we don't like this. And he said, but, you know, you have to, it's required. You got to read this. And the kids they're debating with him. And one girl raised her hand. She said, I don't like this because Chaucer, the author, is a sexist. He said, why do you say he's a sexist? So he's a sexist because he calls women wenches in the book. He says, okay, how many of you think Chaucer is a sexist? Well, at least half the kids raise their hands because they think maybe this will get them out of the book. He said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put Chaucer on trial, and the charge is sexism. And he divides the team up into, there'll be one side he's arguing that he is a sexist, the other side defending Chaucer, and then he's got witnesses. He calls me up a week later and says, Pedro, you got to come see this. So I go in there, they're passionately debating Chaucer. What he did was he found a way to make the work come to life. Cultural relevance is about tapping into the knowledge and brilliance of kids. Our kids can learn all kinds of things. They can learn science, they can learn history, they can learn literature, they can learn math, if the teacher knows how to make it relevant. That's what it's about. And that's what we have to show our teachers, how to make those connections between what the kids are learning and who the kids are.
Cool. Caden, did you want to ask one last question to Dr. Nogueira? I think he's been working all day too, so he came and put in work now.
All right, I'll go ahead and do the other question here. Let me take a look. Okay, so I have a question down here from Gilberto A. Cooper. Doctor, you have been mentioning Eastern schools. Are there any schools in California that have been particularly effective in teaching African-American students?
Well, absolutely. Now, I haven't been in the Bay Area for a while, but I'm in LA now for 5 years. And we just did a study on the state of black children in LA County. And again, similar findings, trying to understand what's holding black kids back. Well, we found at least 3 schools that serve black children extremely well. Watts Learning Center, the Baldwin Hills Primary School, and King Drew Magnet. King Drew sends more black students to the UC system than any school in LA County. Okay? And so we said, look, you already have the example of schools that are doing the job. We need more schools like this. Why do we just have one? Why do we just have one high school that can do this when we should have dozens, right? So there are examples here, and I know there are examples in the Bay Area as well. I just haven't been up there in a while, so I can't name them.
Cool. Well, Dr. Nogueira, I just want to personally say thank you. You responded to the call to action, and you always do, as I've noticed. And so I don't know if you have any closing words for us to send us off and really get us geared up toward parent engagement, parent empowerment, and really talking to our community about how we work in service of black students. So did you have any closing remarks for us at all?
I do. Because a lot of this comes down to vision and will. What do we have? What's our vision for our children, right? Do we love our children enough to ensure they get the education they need and deserve? I was in South Africa a few years ago visiting Robben Island. Robben Island is an island, it's like Alcatraz, it's off of Cape Town. It was a prison. Nelson Mandela was held in prison there for almost 20 years, 7 years in solitary confinement. I was given a tour of the prison by a former inmate who served time with Mandela. And he showed me how harsh the conditions were and the cell that Mandela was in. He said, they created this prison to destroy us, and it became known as our university. I said, the prison became your university? He said, that's right. That's where people like me got our education. And he explained that Mandela was a lawyer, and there were others in there who were educated, who were educating other inmates, and they won over guards who smuggled in books for them. I thought to myself, if you can turn a prison into a university, we can certainly create schools where our kids can learn. Yeah. So let's not hold ourselves back. We can do this. We don't have to wait to get the right leadership. We have the people right now, but we need the will to make it happen. So William, thank you for the time this evening. I feel for my people there in West Contra Costa, but we can do this. Stay focused on the children.
Thank you, Dr. Nogueira. We appreciate it, and we will definitely be responding to that call to action. And so the text messages was blowing up. I apologize. I wasn't able to kind of keep it all together, but I do want to tell you guys that I'm truly appreciative of Dr. Nogueira coming through, sharing his wisdom. Zalan has asked that we get these books and get them on audio, so we will definitely be working on that. I want to say thank you to everybody who made this happen. And before we do get out of here, you all, just a couple of things. Our website is up and running, so WCCUSD.net/OAASA. You can go to the school district website and find that information. I believe I wanted to shout out, I'm not sure if Bobby and Rachel can tell us who attended, but the other thing, we're doing a monthly newsletter, And so that's going out to you all. So please sign up via email. We're sending it electronically and we're sending it in the mail. So we're working on that feverishly monthly for you all, as well as our Facebook page and Twitter. We're trying to get that active and up to date for you all so you could jump on it. And so a couple of quick things, as Alon mentioned, the ASAP, African American Site Advisory Team, will be meeting October 20. And so please be on the lookout for that. This is a very active group and they demand accountability. And so if you want to respond to the call, please do so. We fight, we love each other, we fight again, we eat and we love each other. So if you want to be a part of this powerful group, please do that. Your APACs at your school site, your principals are very interested in getting these started up. So please contact them. We will be sending them out stuff this week. If they do not have the APAC set up, you can volunteer to get that set up and we'll be working with you. And then we also have our secretary who will be reaching out to you all too. Yolanda is interested in working with you all. And then the last thing before we get off of here, I do want to say thank you to our school board for making this possible. Thank you to our staff and our superintendent for leading the charge and really engaging in this courageous work. To Zalon for jumping on. She said, Will, what you got me doing today? But she wanted to do this. To Joi for jumping in there, representing the NAACP. Please check out their debate. Check out the AXO program. To Rachel and Bobby, who came through in a clutch on the communications and did basically everything we asked and were on calls late night. Much appreciative for that. And I really don't want to forget people. To Jayvon and his mom, Miss Juanita, great job. Joi, I said you, great job. Caden, excellent job. And then to the team that's really been supporting me, and I feel like I'm on an award show or something, but got Nancy Garcia, she's my administrative assistant who was taking care of everything in the background, as well as Cicely De Artosa and Andre Shumate. So we're going to close it out. You guys had a lot of questions. We're going to copy the chat. People were talking about, can we get the books? Yes, this is recorded. Bobby and Rachel will work on getting us, getting that up for us. And we will be definitely getting you guys, and please be on the lookout for us. So again, in solidarity, love trumps hate. We appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. We love you. Take care of yourselves, and we got you.
All right.
All right.